Hey. So, today, I thought we would talk about something that is about to be relevant. All too relevant for some people. And that is that dreaded day that is about to descend upon us. That day for lovers, the day for lovers. That day for lovers, Valentine's Day. People dread it for different reasons. Sometimes because they're alone, and sometimes because they're not, and they have no idea what to do for their loved one. Or maybe they do know, but they just can't quite do it. Valentine's Day. I always find it quite ironic that Valentine's Day is Cupid, named after the Roman god Eros, who was far more happy on the battlefield with his bow and arrow. He was a fighter, not a lover. He was a fighter, not a lover. Fighter, not a lover. So, for generations, we follow the path. February the 14th. Romantic day for lovers. And if you forget, you're in big trouble. I will be truthful with you and say that I don't celebrate Valentine's Day. I never have. And that's not just because I've never actually gotten a Valentine's Day gift or anything such like that, but I've never sent one either. I always stood by the belief that I can do something any day of the year, not just one. And then you meet someone. It's always the same. You meet someone who completely rewrites your whole belief system on such things, such romance and intrigue and love, and suddenly you find yourself ASAP planning beyond belief about what to do for Valentine's Day. And relationships are a minefield, a complete minefield. Oftentimes I find myself stepping in the wrong place, and it didn't end well. Not intentionally, of course. Just sometimes relationships are a minefield, and if you haven't been in one for a long time, then you find yourself in one. It can be a little bit jarring at first. It can be a little bit new, like fresh. Suddenly, it's not just you have to think about, it's somebody else. Suddenly you start thinking about all the jokes you ever heard from stand-up comedians about girlfriends and wives, and I can only say from this point of view, I can't, say about boyfriends and the such, because for obvious reasons, but it's the same thing essentially. Relationships, whether you're in a straight relationship or a gay relationship or whatever you call your relationship, there'll always be hang-ups and things that go wrong and things that are comical and things that are too melodramatic that are a big deal to you. You tell someone else and they look at you like you're an idiot. Like, why is this a big deal? Valentine's Day is that minefield. Like, do you celebrate it or don't you? Because you can say to your loved one, you know what? I'm not going to do Valentine's Day today or this year. We're not going to do it. And she'll say, okay, that's fine. I wasn't going to do anything for you anyway. So you sit there and you're like, okay, right. That's great. That doesn't make me feel guilty. Or that's great. You weren't going to do anything for me. I'm not going to do anything for you. That's fine. We can just do what we always do, right? We can just be with each other. Just do what we always do. And then the day comes and you don't do anything, and then suddenly the mood swings come. And you ask, what's wrong? She says, nothing. So you carry on talking normally, acting the idiot. Just being yourself, because there was no big deal. You agreed to it. But she wanted you to do something. Because she wants to feel special, but she didn't want to make you feel like you had to do it. And the day comes and it doesn't happen, because she was hoping you were doing reverse psychology, like, I'm not going to do anything, and then you surprise her and then you don't. And it's just, then you get hit because you're completely blindsided, even though you shouldn't have been blindsided because it was so obvious. I was thinking today about this subject before I was recording it, and it reminds me of a story that I first heard a long time ago. It's a famous ghost story or myth in Wales, and I didn't realize until a long time after I first heard it that the man in the story was a distant uncle. And the more I think about the story, the more I think, it's not so much ghostly, more he didn't want to upset his wife. So the story goes, a long time ago, in the 1800s, it was about the 1830s, there was a coal mine in Wales. It was probably the most dangerous coal mine in Wales, and one of the most dangerous coal mines in the UK, in Europe. It was dangerous beyond belief. Many, many men and boys lost their lives. And my great uncle worked there. His name was David. And one night, after work, he stepped into the pub. Coal mining culture is rife with pubs and drink, superstitions, and that's just the way it is. Mixed it with some healthy Welsh culture, and it's basically what happens. There was a big campaign about coal miners who were abusive to their wives, and it's actually a very sad story, but men who would use all their pay to buy drink, and their families would have nothing for food. And anyway, I'm not sure he was one of those people. He just went to have a drink one night, had a little bit too much. So he's walking home, and as he's walking home, it's like a lane, and one side of the lane has trees, with like a little forest, and the other side is a ditch. Pebblestones in the middle of the lane. Rough road. It's not really a road. He's walking along. Walking. And steadily, because he's drank far, far too much. But he's walking along, and suddenly he hears the sound of a cart and horse hooves behind him. So he stops, and he moves to the side of the road to let the horse and cart pass. And after a little while he realizes that nothing's past him, but he can still hear the noise. He turns back and there's nothing there. The noise has stopped. So shakes his head and keeps moving on. He hears the sound of the horse and the cart again. This time it's a little bit closer. So he steps back to the side again to let the horse and cart pass. Same thing happens again. He turns around. There's nothing there, just the darkness. Just the sound of the night. The crickets and the birds, the owls, tweeting, tweeting. Shrugs his shoulders again and keeps moving on. It happens again. It keeps happening. Till eventually he gets a little annoyed. Bearing in mind that this guy is supposedly drunk out of his skull, but he's not gonna step back and allow this horse and cart pass this time because he's done. It's clearly a figment of his imagination and nothing else. Only this time it's not. And suddenly he's pushed to the side, thrown. And as he's laying the side of the road in the gutter trench, he looks up, and passes him is this ghostly apparition, a funeral cart and horse. Welsh myth and legend is filled with stories of ghostly horses and carts, especially in connection with coal mines. You have to remember that every day these men lived with this threat of death hanging over their heads. I mean, especially in a coal mine like this. So he stares at it till it's almost entirely past. The whole funeral cortege just walks past and disappears into the night. Sound of the horses, hooves, and the cartwheels is gone, and his mouth is agape, and his eyes is wide. You remember this time this is a man of late 30s, early 40s, and he's laying there, sitting there on his bottom, staring into the darkness at where this horse and cart and ghostly funeral procession has disappeared into. And he goes home, because where else is he supposed to go? And this story became famous. It is one that I heard before. It's just when I found out my family tree, that was a story that was connected with him, David, and he was married to my great-great-great-grandmother, Catherine's older sister, Esther. So the more I think about this, when I first heard it, it was a ghost story. But the more I think about it, and the more I know the women in my family, fierce, never cross a woman in my family. The more I realize that that was an excuse He gets home late, drunk, having spent money in the pub. And she's demanding to know where he's been. So he straight up tells her, I'm late because, oh my god, guess what happened to me? You will never guess. And he tells her this story about ghosts and funeral processions, and it's just a story, but it's one that he uses to get himself out of trouble. And the more I think about it, the more it seems to be a comical story of a guy who finishes work, agrees to go to the pub with his friends, spends too long there, drinks far too much. It's a very Homer Simpson style story. Maybe it's true. Maybe it did happen. Maybe he did see it, but I'm of a belief that this is not a ghost story. No. This is the kind of story Homer would tell Marge. And there was David telling Esther this story one night. Did she believe it? I don't know. Maybe. Celtic culture is very superstitious. The stories are filled with ghosts and even like fairies and all kinds of mythical creatures. Very, very, very superstitious. You mix in the coal mining culture, maybe she did. I mean, the stories seem to become famous, that it got out until it's one that's told down the ages by people not associated with the family at all. So I suppose it became one that he told, or Esther told. I don't know, somebody told it. But I always think about that story, and it just makes me chuckle a little bit. And the more I go along on this journey of adult relationships, I kind of find myself somehow understanding how David would have found himself in a situation where he would need to have told such a tall tale. Another excuse is that he was just blind drunk, and he dreamed it or imagined it. That could be another excuse. Who knows? But that whole thing, I think, perfectly encapsulates relationships. Let me say it right. Relationships sometimes. One person having to stay on their toes at all times, keep their guard up, lest it fall. So if she ever says she doesn't want a gift, she doesn't want to do Christmas or Valentine's Day, do it anyway. Okay, I think that this is it for now. I've had a little mix of love for Valentine's Day, but also a little funny ghost story, which is... Love stories and ghost stories are not so dissimilar, you know. Both terrifying. I hope you enjoyed this softly spoken video. I haven't done one of these for a little while. I thought maybe it was definitely time to do one. And I thought that this topic really warranted a softly spoken voice instead of a whisper. time to bid farewell to you and you and you. I will be back, of course, as always. Wild horses wouldn't drag me away. I'll be back. So until next time, see ya.